it's so important, and you hear all the great directors talk about this. And I mean, if you've worked on a set and you have a bit of understanding of what that environment's like, then I think you probably know this too. But you know, I've worked on both kinds of sets, and typically when I'm leading a set, I like it to be, if you don't need to be here for this thing, look, being in acting it's highly difficult enough.
Yeah.
And like the idea that you're going to be able to overcome this insecurity, or you're going to be able to really open yourself up to a world, that's incredibly difficult in and of itself. So add in 13 people that are watching, it's just going to make things more difficult. And there is a group of people, I've worked with them, you've worked with them, and it's like a archetype of a person where they're more concerned with how many, like, let's get a jib, and like let's get 46 people, and they're going to stand around, and everybody's going to be standing around, and because they're more interested in the pageantry of what's going on, rather than just like, look, it is your job to create a safe space. It's like, I'm glad that you have all this pageantry, but the result, nobody's going back. Nobody looks at anything. All the shittiest films ever with big budgets, I'm sure it looked impeccable on that set. You know, I'm sure that it was as impressive as you could imagine. Like, do we go back and judge it though? On like, man, the film sucked. No emotional connection whatsoever. Didn't understand what they were doing. Just terrible. But did you see the set?
Right.
Like, that thing was killer. Nobody gives a shit.
No.
Like, there's plenty of stuff that was shot. I mean, Kubrick talks about, you know, he'd often, I think it was on Eyes Wide Shut, where it'd be like him and a DP, and like you'd have Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise at the time too, just as big as a name, as if not bigger, because everything was kind of more. It was more of like a media powder keg back then. There were only so many outlets, and they would just go to places and shoot. It'd be like the DP Kubrick, I'm sure, like a production assistant probably, or like maybe a grip,
steal a few shots,
a grip who can kind of double as like a gaffer or something, and they would steal shots for like important scenes. And you hear about that all the time, just throughout you listening to great directors. So all of that to say, creating a safe space, it's important. How do you think? Like, how do you go about that? And you know, that was a film example, but I think this applies to everything. Do you feel like this is a safe space? Does the camera influence?
Well, if Maggie wasn't here, that damn dog just puts me on edge.
She puts me on edge.
She's listening to every word and judging me.
Got to really work into what we're saying.
By the way?
Honestly, she's usually in here.
Oh wait, she couldn't care less.
I mean, did the camera stress you out, or like? Because there are certain things.
No, I'm so used to it now.
Yeah,
you know,
I was gonna say
it's such a standard part of my life for so many years. Whether I was doing it on my own as a kid with a VHS camera, all the way up till 2018 when I started my YouTube channel. It admittedly, a lot of what I've made has not been terribly collaborative to where I have to be thinking about creating a safe space in making work with other artists. Now, I've done commercial work where I'm very cognizant of everyone being respectful. Obviously myself, as somebody who struggles with control and the pressure of getting, the day and all that stuff, I certainly have behaviors where if that stuff mounts in certain situations, I can become visibly impatient or frustrated or whatever. And I go, fortunately can map myself to go, let's make sure you're not contributing to any unsafe feelings that anybody has. And I think, that hasn't been an issue for me on commercial shoots and all that.
And you said unsafe feelings there. So I just want to take a moment to kind of define what we're talking about with safe spaces. Cause it's I think it's like a place where you can be vulnerable.
Right.
and not have to worry about getting killed for it.
Right.
Like that's essentially it, right?
Raked over the coals, laughed at, ridiculed, funny looks, made to feel like you don't, that your contribution isn't needed.
Yeah.
I make that joke sometimes. There's been a few times, and I don't think, sometimes I think when I've been in situations in professional settings where I don't like that everyone thinks like, oh, he's like the guy that helps the editor, or whatever position it was. My ego and my insecurities will come out and be like, well, I kind of want everyone to know, like, I kind of know this world. Like,
and so you start dropping comments and you start
doing that crap. And
you
I'm
look
like,
back on it, it just feels gross.
Yeah. And then people are like, why's the whatever guy talking about this stuff? Like your insecurities about them. No, really, like I'm a talented filmmaker. I just have to do this for money. That's why I'm like PAing on this thing. But like, I lived in LA. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like just stupid stuff.
And if you
like
could
that.
see a recording of yourself doing that, you'd just be like,
like, get over yourself.
And I think that you just perfectly exemplified why it's necessary, because you're in a space that it doesn't seem like it's just, you can be yourself, you can be whatever. Right. There is an expectation. And, sometimes that's the director comes in and starts talking about this or about that. And they're just like, look at how good and that happens, or the DP or whatever. Yeah. And suddenly you have people that feel like it's a keeping up with the Joneses environment. So then you start wearing a mask. Yeah. You start changing your interactions with people. You start presenting the best version, or the plastic version of yourself to whatever that world is. And obviously, if that's happening to the crew, it's affecting how they're going about their work. Suddenly they're like, well, I don't want to try that thing because I don't know if I can pull it off. So why put myself in that vulnerable situation? If that's happening with the crew, it's happening with the people that are literally carrying the thing. So,
well, and if, especially
singers,
talking about a film setting, when I would be in a situation where I've got a little bit of my own agenda, well, I'm going to make inroads with this person, or I'm going to drop a hint that I'm a screenwriter, or, whatever, to like try to like satisfy my agenda. Well, even if you're the quote unquote lowest person on set, the smallest position, like you're the assistant to the caterer or whatever it is, all those positions. And this, to me, creating a safe space as a director or producer or someone who's at a top level position, to try to communicate to everyone, just as a reminder, because sometimes we need that. What we're doing is all in service to the work we're creating. And even though Bill here is the director and I'm the producer and she's the lead actress, we're all working together to serve the vision of this work. Yeah. And that goes all the way down to the guy in the truck with all the gear, to the PA, to whatever. You all have an opportunity to make this happen, because without all of you, it doesn't happen. You're here for a reason. And I think for me, and this is the beauty, especially of film school and being in these positions where I had like kind of my own little agenda, and maybe I wasn't paying attention to what was going on, and I got busted for being loud, or they had to shut the door because I was talking, or whatever it was. You almost need that conversation to get everybody to coalesce behind this thing.
Start with that almost, yeah.
Because some people that don't really understand, they might think, well, I'm not as important to this as the lead actress. Like, well, actually you are. Yeah. And even if you aren't focused on it, it's going to be a problem. And Bradley talked about that in the discussion with Spike Lee. He said, on my set, I expect everyone, and I mean everyone, to bring it.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the sunrise.